You're listening to Built to Convert, the podcast where growth-minded marketers, founders, and creators come to level up. No hype, no guesswork, just bold insights that drive results. Let's go.
Welcome to Built to Convert, the podcast where we explore how strategy, analytics, and creativity come together to drive meaningful growth. I'm your host, Tyler Lane, founder of Session Interactive. In each episode, we sit down with marketers, founders, and operators who are building real momentum inside today's most interesting companies. This episode is brought to you by Session Interactive, the performance marketing agency for brands that are serious about SEO, paid media, and analytics. If your internal team needs extra horsepower or your strategy could use sharper insights, we help a variety of industries drive measurable revenue with less guesswork. Learn more at sessioninteractive.com. All right, today we've are joined with Yash Ranadive, founder and CEO of Videoselz, a platform helping brands boost conversions by showcasing user-generated content and product videos directly inside their Shopify stores. Yash brings a fascinating background in engineering and leadership with prior roles at Meta's Reality Labs, and Facebook's ad growth team, where he's helped drive billions of dollars of impact. In this conversation, we'll explore how video and immersive content are reshaping online commerce, what he's learning building multiple startups, and where he sees AI and other components of tech influencing the future of customer engagement. Yash, good to see you, man. I know we caught up a couple weeks ago, but good to have you on the pod.
Great to have you, Tyler, as well. And thank you so much. Really excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yash and I caught up. I was out in Inbound at the Inbound conference in San Francisco the other day. We caught up and grabbed a couple drinks, and good to always see people. Novel concept to see people in person, right?
Yeah,
wild. Why? How dare we do that? Yash, we always like to start off with just the little bit of background, right? Establishing some of your expertise. You've been in the game a while. You started multiple companies. Talked about kind of your those initial companies that you founded, GretPage and Reality Shop, and now Videoselz. You're definitely a serial entrepreneur at this point. What keeps you excited about that entrepreneurial journey? And talk to us about those different startups.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. It's really funny. All of this really started with a documentary, and it's really weird. It was like, hey, companies and documentary doesn't go well. Well, let me tell you a story. It was back in 2011. And I don't know if it was one of the places, I think it was probably the Salesforce founder who said that there's this documentary, you guys should check it out. And I checked out a documentary, and it really changed my perspective towards life. So the name of the documentary is Jiro Dreams of Sushi. And it's a pretty popular one. And it talks about sushi, one of my favorite foods. But what's really important is the man behind it. And he's been at it for 80 plus years. And one of the things that I really learned is that as a person, as an entrepreneur, you really should be doing things that are you, that are in essence you. And that really was like me, the founder, like especially the way the Jiro sort of really obsesses about small things. And that's exactly I found me doing as well. But it's about quality. That's the most important thing, right? How do you create something really amazing and that just works? And several things need to align for that to happen. So back to my entrepreneurial journey, my first company, GretPage, we were a tool for software developers to find their notes really quickly. And this was back before we had AI. As developers, we had way too many different tools, and you had to keep a lot of things in mind. So every developer kept a bunch of notes, but they weren't organized, and you couldn't share them between folks on your team. So I started a company, and very not too far into the company, my wife got pregnant, and then we had a couple of other things that we had to do. So after a year of iterating on that, I decided to move on. Started at Meta. And that was a fabulous journey. It lasted for 6 years. I'll talk about that later. And then I started Videoselz. That was back in 2024. Really focused on creating videos. How we got into that was also a great story. I started at Meta in ads growth, like you mentioned. Bless you.
Thank you.
And the hardest part about ads growth was just the sheer number of volume that we were getting. And how do we make every user happy, grow so that we retain them and get them to come back? To give you reference, at that time, we made $200 million in revenue per day on ads. Most companies don't make that in their entire lifetime. So that was huge. That was a great experience. I learned a lot about how to grow a company, how to grow a product. I was responsible and leading a team responsible for the growth engine. And that's basically, if you were to go on any Facebook property, there was a little code snippet that my team wrote that would show messages. So if you were if you were a merchant, it would show you, hey, maybe you should be creating e-commerce ads. Or if you were a user, it would show you something else. So imagine that across Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, groups, products, Facebook Marketplace. There's a whole bunch. Our product was out there, and we got billions and billions, close to trillions of impressions of just events. And the challenge is, how do you create like a holistic view of your audience so that they get the right growth messages, and then you improve. We made over $1 billion for Meta in that time frame that I was there, and it's great to see the incremental impact that we drove. But something that I learned from there was you want to skate to where the puck is going. And I chatted with folks in the company, figured out what's the next thing. Where's this world headed? Where's e-commerce headed? Where's ads headed? And one of the big areas was AR/VR, and that was a big part, and still continues to be a huge part of investments that Facebook is making, Meta is making in that. And I worked on the team responsible for processing video data, and this video data was going to the machine learning algorithms or the computer vision algorithms that were powering the headsets. So every time you move your head in the headset, the computer needs to recalculate what is your position in the room. So there's that's called SLAM. There's eye tracking, face tracking. Where's your eye looking? Is your face smiling or not? All of these core technologies needed tons and tons of video data. So yeah, I led a team over there. We did some great work, a lot of video processing, a lot of very hard code video level stuff. So I was always interested in video, and I saw an opportunity that market was underserved in terms of headsets. People weren't making enough products for that. I started a company, Reality Shop, creating products for that market. We spoke to a lot of e-commerce customers, and we came to the realization that the headsets weren't in enough households for that to be valuable for them to pursue. So at some point, we see that Meta's new augmented reality glasses will change some of that. But again, that's a harder thing to sell over time, as the added weight on people's faces is going to be a friction point, and it's interesting to see how that progresses. But while I was working on that problem, I saw that video was still a huge part of the way people interact and understand. You have to understand one thing is that your eyes are your biggest bandwidth to your brain of seeking and getting information. And when you take video, which is one frame after the other, you're talking about not just one image, you're talking about millions of images. And the amount that your brain is learning from that is way higher than it could reading walls of text. So video was a very natural thing. We started looking at what we could do with video, spoke to merchants, and understood this is a great space to be in. It's improving, it's growing, and AI is just changing this space so rapidly. And it's in a nutshell what I've been up to.
Yeah. It's I love just going back there around watching that video, and I think I've watched that. The sushi reminds me of something that kind of that entrepreneurial journey to get you inspired to state, and then ultimately, having some more responsibility. Maybe your risk tolerance after your kid was a little bit lower. So wanting things a little bit more stable, which we can all respect that. Talk to me about that. Your engineering background is quite impressive, and you've been able to implement that and execute that on a long-term basis. But then, you're fixating that on the company Lookout, and then going into growth leadership at Facebook. How did those experiences kind of change your approach as it relates to building products at scale? Right. I know you glean different things from different companies, but were you executing on the engineering at Facebook, or were you're sort of leading the team at that point, right? So you were probably less a practitioner, and now, right, at Videoselz, you're back to being a practitioner but wearing more hats. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, Facebook was, managing engineers is a way different ball game than actually doing the engineering. And one of the things that really stuck to me, one of my reports told me, I really love working for you because you understand the engineering bits and I can go as deep as I want. And every time I go deep, you can up level me, right? And that's kind of the biggest thing. So I've, it's the same thing when you think about Elon Musk. If you talk to Elon Musk about any part, he would exactly be able to tell you what that part does. Management is, and that's not the case for most companies. It's just not very practical for them to hire practitioners who are then turning into managers just because there's fewer of them. And then once they turn into managers, they lose the practitioner spirit. Right. You saw Jiro was making sushi, even till now, I bet he is. So it's very important to be close to the code. It's very important to be close to understand if somebody, and this happens to me every day. A lot of people tell me, hey, this can't be done. And I challenge them. Why can't this be done? I already know how to do it. And I know here's the answer. Go do it. So it's very important to really understand that so that when somebody reports to you or somebody works for you, you can then be a good judge of their work to up-level them. And for the most important thing, to be fair to the organization that you're running, that the quality of decisions that are being made in the organization are not subpar, right? So it's very important to be in the weeds. So my leadership style is extremely, sort of be in the weeds and, be in the trenches, suffer. I'm a big fan of this thing I learned at Facebook called the War Room. So the War Room is this tradition at Facebook has been going on for many, many years. And that was one of the things that I really take back from Facebook and I've thought was the best thing that I took from Facebook was the tradition of War Room. And I don't know how much people know about this, but in the War Room is just basically engineers, or it doesn't have to be always engineers. It's UI folks, whoever needs to be in the room, gets a room, shuts down every window, shuts down every door, gets 4 computers in a room, and all they do is obsessively fix a problem. And that means, not going to any meeting, not doing anything else rather than just completely being fixated on that problem. And there's a way in which you define how you get out of the war room. There's a definition. We are going to be out of the war room once this is achieved. So everybody knows exactly what to do. And that's something that I still do it. We had a war room just recently last month in our company, which by the way led us to get the Build for Shopify badge that less than 2% of the apps out there. So just right after I met you, this is exactly what happened. And I remember the following week I was sick, but the war room was on. So, the wheels had to keep running. And then I remember approving that, okay, now we can submit to Shopify. We'd made all our changes, dazed in on a bunch of amoxicillin. And and the next day we just got it. We had worked slogged for many years. We're working with Shopify for over 4 months, really making sure that all those 4 are, all the requirements were done. But, I digress. Going back to sort of the things I learned at Facebook, that was, the war rooms are the thing to go. We still do it at the company. We love it. And I apologize. I'm probably not answering the exact question that you...
No, you are. Yeah. I love the don't apologize. No, I just... to me, it's just the ability to put yourself and others on the spot. I think there's this culture too that we'll do that. We'll take our own, our time to figure it out later, right, with ourselves. And in fact, a lot of those problems, not all, but a lot of those problems really need to be done. Like, let's force people to be uncomfortable. Let's force to really derive the ideas out of an individual. And it's not like you're putting them on the spot. You are, but you're allowing them to prep prior to as well, and do some research, conduct some due diligence prior to maybe the war room concept. And I really enjoy that. And I think that's something that, we likely need to do here at Session too, just to put each other on the spot and make some decisions a little bit faster. And I think the piece too that gravitated towards me indirectly is just that kind of fail forward mentality too. It's like, you're going to accomplish this. You're going to be able to leave the war room with some sort of product, right? It may not be perfect or some outcome, but at least there's a reason. And I think putting it on yourself to allow you to leave, right? Are you confident in that, in the product that you actually put together? So I love those components. Let's transition here into what I've been talking about in the past, or obviously around what you're leveraging at this point. I think, two questions here. One is around, you were working at Meta Reality Labs doing spatial computing and computer vision work and things like that. As you're working more in the e-commerce space as it relates to marketing now with Shopify, where do you see some of those emerging technologies, Yash? I mean, we're all well aware of the glasses and all sorts of other things that are making things more and more accessible to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. Not to dwell on individual products, but are you seeing solutions arise or certain things that people use their behavior around e-commerce and those core concepts that you utilize around spatial computing and others? Yeah. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've spent years thinking about this, literally years thinking about this. Ever since I joined Meta's Reality Lab back in 2020? Yeah, it was 2020. The pandemic had just happened. I had chatted with many folks internally to understand where the products were headed, and had a good idea of the product line, where we were going to go as a company. And I was really, really excited about the vision. And even back from 2015 or 2014, when they first released the first spatial computer, which was Microsoft's HoloLens. Mm. And since then, I've been following the space really closely. The question is spatial computing awesome? And the answer is yes, it is. You can do a lot of cool realities. Mission Impossible. Sorry, not Mission Impossible. I forget the name of the movie where they just kind of pick things and move them here.
Minority Report. Maybe?
Minority Report. Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm. It's really cool to do that. And I have the Apple Vision Pro right now, which I rarely use. I joke that it's the most expensive paperweight I ever purchased. And it's a great product, but the problem is just the friction, right? Human beings, just like flowing water, are going to take the path of least resistance. And unless the friction is, unless the value that they get by, doing the path of more friction is so far beyond like the pain the friction causes, they're just not going to do it. Sure. So, as Apple saw, people just weren't using their headsets as much as they thought they would. And the reason is that it's heavy, it adds weight. You can't like go to the bathroom with it on. You could if you wanted to, but it's just kind of weird and awkward. The phone is a lot better mechanism. So in terms of how does this all translate into the future of e-commerce? It is true that these spatial computing devices, such as the Meta's headset and Meta's AR glasses, in my opinion, will be adopted more and more. So this is a great opportunity for very large brands to now start expanding their distribution channels. It's absolutely a phenomenal opportunity, like they do with Roblox. Nike does that. McDonald's did it, and a few other. I think Burger King did it. They need more eyeballs, and this is just a great opportunity to do that. But for it to trickle down to normal masses, or for it to be, I think we're some time away. So in terms of spatial computing, one of the biggest friction points of spatial computing is its 3D nature. The other are the devices. They're just either heavy, or if they're not heavy, then the battery life isn't as long as you would want them to be. There's some issues with displays. There's a whole bunch of issues surrounding that. But regardless, that being said, before we are able to directly project photons into our retina, either by some sort of a brain implant, or we won't be able to do photons in retina and brain implant, but you could communicate with the brain with the brain implant. That's like way down the line. But before that, we could possibly get a lens that you can put on your eye, which has a display on, so that you don't have to wear anything. But yeah, there's many different ways in which that could really manifest itself. But in reality, I feel like if you're looking at the next 5 to 10 years, e-commerce brands, they should really focus on doubling down on the AI wave, in my opinion, more than the spatial computing wave. I think the spatial computing wave is going to come, but it's probably further down. And AI is where e-commerce and AI just match made in heaven, just amazing in terms of what the power each brand owner has now. Is just so much more valuable than what it did. Like even back in the day, if a CEO of a brand had to ask a question, they might have to hire someone, do these studies, but now they have access to an LLM that can just tell them the answer straight away and give them good answers, right? So that even if the answer is not complete, you can actually say, okay, now here's the area that I want to go dig deeper in. So how is AI changing e-commerce? It's changing significantly, right? First, what happens today? Many merchants struggle with their content creation, and that's just one area, right? What should I put in my product description page? What should be my audience like? Who should I target to? All of that, I think it's absolutely super easy. Now, if you would have needed 10 people, now you need 5 people to do the same kind of work. And content creation is expensive today and intimidating, and it's getting faster and better with AI. But there's another kind of content which still continues to be expensive and intimidating, which is video content, which is very, very important for any kind of e-commerce page. And the reason is just that your eyes are drawn to motion. It's part of our limbic system. Your brain is just drawn to motion. So when you're scrolling down a page, your eyes are naturally going to go. It's like an opportunity that you can't miss. Their eyes are going to go there, so you better take advantage of that 1 millisecond that they're going to read this. What can you put in that first frame of that video that is just going to jump out? So that's one thing. Second thing, I would say, analytics and being data driven. Because of AI, it's going to be really easy for these merchants to actually take a dump of a CSV file, and then maybe that's not the right, a popular word to use, but take a CSV file and then figure out what does my data show, right? They couldn't have been able to do that.
No.
The other thing is generating captions, translations for their videos, voiceovers. All of that is now possible. And I would say the last thing with AI is personalization. That is absolutely the most way that we are seeing e-commerce brands can really differentiate themselves. I want to tell you a story of a small brand, and I was blown away with this. 3 months back, we were reached by a brand, and they said that, hey, we want to create our videos, but there's this one thing in Shopify that just is, we can't figure it out. Can you help us? So we help them figure it out. So apparently this small brand, it's in rural India, wants to sell to folks in Cincinnati and, in California. And I'm like, okay, I'm like really curious here. What's going on? Like, how, is this your target market? How are you speaking to them? And they're like, yes, we have these micro networks and there's people in those networks from all over the world. And I need to be able to ship to different countries. I was like, but you are a one-person brand. Like, how are you doing this? And they're like, no, it's super easy. All our distribution channels, the way we ship, everything is done. I want you to figure out a way how we can show on videos a different price for the US versus India.
Yeah.
And that's where sort of personalization is so important, where that's exact same product, if the user generated content is personalized to the area, it just drives so much more revenue, and people won't even know where it's being shipped from. So it's an exciting time in e-commerce for brands, and I wouldn't be surprised in the next decade or so we can get to $1 billion one-person e-commerce brand. I'm looking for that. Whether it's going to be more than a decade, I don't know, but things are definitely getting there. Where it's not that they won't necessarily have people working for them. There will be people working for them, but they're probably they're orchestrating agents and so forth versus actually doing the work. It's going to be agents doing the work. And we see this every day. I've been deep into agents, and boy, the things that they can do are just absolutely mind-boggling. And as a computer scientist, I just love the amount of work and the pain that has been put through in creating these foundational models. But because of that, now we have this beautiful, powerful way in which we can solve any complex problems, whether it's sending emails or creating ads or whatever a merchant may need. It's just getting so much easier. And I see a lot more a trend in companies solving those sort of problems where not only are they creating a product that the merchant can use, but they are actually creating these agents, which are essentially replacement workers. And, people can hire them, fire them. There might be an HR in AI as well for working for these brands. It's pretty exciting next few years. I can't, I have fun working every day, and I can't wait to see what the future brings for us.
Yeah, it's exciting times. It's also, I think, daunting too, right? And just how quickly things are changing, and realizing that the human needs to be a part of this, whether it's your ideation process with an LLM or a workflow that you've built out, letting the technology just run itself is fairly nerve-wracking, right?
No, it is. Yeah,
we've all seen hallucinations. We've seen certain things like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah.
So it's exciting though when you take someone like yourself with such an impressive background and being able to create a custom GPT or train up an LLM with your experience. So you can call bullshit on certain things, but you could also just tap into so many things, so much more strategic power to your team than you could before. You could still do it, but just the time in particular, the time saving is pretty wild. Exciting stuff. Yash, you've led engineering teams at Meta, and then obviously small startup groups. Talk to us about kind of some leadership lessons that translate well across those environments, being at such a massive organization like Meta versus something not nearly as large with your own company currently.
Yeah.
What are some of those? I know you took away the war room and certain things like that, but talk to me some leadership lessons around holding yourself accountable, holding the team accountable, keeping things motivated, keeping things on course, and making sure you're really hitting some of those aggressive deadlines that you put on yourself.
Yeah, it all starts with the goals, right? And goals keep changing over time. And I think the hardest part is prioritizing as a leader what the team should be working on and yourself should be working on. I think once you master that, that's really easy to go forward and then have the team work on certain things. So I think different organizations are different, right? Meta had a very large organization and they had to come up with a scalable way. And that's the most important part. It has to be scalable way that just works. If I add more engineers, I have a template that I can just go over and over and over and it just works. And a big part of that template is the performance review process, which was called PSC at Meta. think it was stood for performance cycle or something like that. And being a manager there, I saw both sides of it, and I got quite deep into it, and really sort of had a chance to evaluate not just my team but other teams as well. Dozens of other teams, probably at that time, even maybe 100 or plus teams, individuals from those teams, understanding how to judge their performance. So, it comes down to that, for the large organizations, even though they have a template, they can get away by running a bit inefficiently on certain side of things. But having this template that just works is, it surpasses the bad things that the inefficiencies bring. So very different is what I would say, working for a large organization and running the company versus running a company on our end. We can't afford even a little bit of inefficiency. We need to be exactly taking the right decisions. We need to cut the bullshit off and just be focused on what we need to do. That is the absolute, I would say, biggest difference. But there are certain things that are same, like you said. The war rooms, those were just focus time. Everybody drops everything, just focus on one thing, get it over. And the most important part of the war room is the exit criteria, which is, when do we know it's done, right? For us, our milestone was to get the Build for Shopify badge, and our team just focused, had one document, we wrote everything down, and we just focused on doing it one by one by one. We had issues, we fixed them, because we had production issues and so on and so forth. But long story short, very, very different styles of running. The other thing I would say, it almost always helps for your core team in any startup to be very small in the beginning, because they say that you don't really want to spread people too thin. But fortunately or unfortunately, when you're a small core team in a startup, you can't afford to have too many discussions in the group, right? So for example, if there's a decision making that needs to be done, you need to have one person that has everything in their mind, and then they can make that decision and move forward. The moment you add an 8, 9, 10 person team, it just becomes a lot harder. So there were opportunities where we were like, okay, if we had someone own this, things would get a lot faster. But then we obviously wouldn't have as many control. And in the beginning, it's very important to make sure that you have control, and over time you can let go of control. That's the one thing I learned at Meta, was understanding when you let go of control, what are the mechanisms in which they could report back, so that that the ship is slightly heading in the right direction, because you don't want somebody paddling back when everybody else is paddling forward. And communication is a big piece of that, like writing your goals down, communicating that to the team. Everybody in the organization must understand that the company is gunning to do this particular milestone. These are all the things that are needed from that in order for us to get to that milestone. So that's communication is really important. And I think the biggest part is leadership. Leadership should have absolute clarity, and that's where I feel that it's not always practical or possible for larger companies to have leaders really be in ownership, be fully own their charter. And the reason is that there is so much movement. You have a director at this large company moving to this other team, and so on and so forth. There's always constant influx, and you have reorganizations and so on and so forth. So it's very hard to do that in a larger company. Whereas a smaller team, you exactly know what you're doing. You know what the exit criteria is. So other than that, I can't think of anything major. It's such a different way, and as a person who derives a lot of happiness from getting things done, it's a lot simpler to do it when you're part of a smaller organization, right? And I think there's less bureaucracy in there, And there's some bureaucracies needed, just because if you are a large organization, you need to make sure everybody feels the same. Otherwise, they're going to feel alienated. So that's why you need processes. And then over time, processes don't solve the problem that they were needed. They're created for. Smaller team, you don't get that. You exactly know what's going on. Let me see if there's anything else that comes to my mind in terms of leadership lessons. I feel like nothing beats goals. Once you have your goals right, you are all set, and you just need to execute on them, because the execution is easy. It's just like figuring out where to go.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, on your entrepreneurial journey, and just we briefly chatted about you guys had your son came into the world, which is awesome and super exciting, but obviously that changes focus and a lot of other responsibilities. Talk to me about kind of how do you manage your time and as that entrepreneur, because I think I can relate that sometimes I just want to heads down and just work, right, and just get after it, but there's a reality that you got to go pick up your kid, or you got to go into a game, or do some extracurriculars and actually be present in other relationships in your life. How do you balance that? Being something you're really excited about, getting that badge, great. Now there's another milestone. Let's reach that. But hey, I got to really fixate on my other core relationships in my life. Something that's often neglected, right? As entrepreneurs. Yeah.
That is very hard.
It is.
I wish I knew the answer to that, because then I would be doing that. I don't have a great answer to how you can do an exceptional job at it. But the way I'll tell you how I look at the problem. For me, it's very important to spend time with my son. So I do take him to soccer. He loves soccer, and him and I love talking about machines and spaceships and rockets and stuff like that. So it's slightly easy because of that, because I enjoy doing those things. I like taking him to the aviation museum, for example. I think it's always challenging to. I think communication is very important with your spouse as well. In terms of time management, I have tried pretty much every routine out there. I started waking up at 5 a.m. Then 6, then 7, and I tried various different things. I really feel that at some point you get into productivity porn, where you are doing something just for the sake of, in your mind, saying that I'm doing the right thing. But in reality, what matters is outcomes, and the outcomes you are able to create. And it doesn't matter, for example, if you wake up at 9 a.m. one day because you were up till 2 a.m. the night before, or it's fine if you wake up in the morning. And I think I heard the CEO of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, say this once, where he says he's really lazy when he wakes up in the morning. He grabs a cup of tea or coffee and then just reads a newspaper for half an hour. So for me, I was focused on getting solid work done between 5 and 7 in the morning. And I think in the end, what really matters is if the outcomes are there, and if you are reaching your milestones, you're reaching your goals, then it's not as important to make sure that every second is micro optimized. But as a whole, you're going to have certain days when you just work harder and certain days where it's a little bit relaxed. As long as you're not burning yourself out or you're just being too lazy, I think you're not on either extremes, you're fine. That's the sort of methodology that I use in my mind. I do have certain, I would say, leadership folks that I look up to, that I've, they don't necessarily talk about time management, but they talk about decision making. And one of my favorite leaders that really resounds well with me is a guy by the name Frank Slootman. I don't know who you know who he is. He was the CEO of ServiceNow. He also was most recently the CEO of Snowflake, and he is just the way his communication style just really resounds with me. They call him General Slootman. because he talks a lot about how starting a company is like going to war, and he does a lot of comparisons. And personally, for me, as a person who just enjoys, that kind of thing, like planes and stuff like that, sometimes I feel like that rhetoric it's easier for me to understand the concepts. But Frank Slootman talks a lot about sort of some decision, the way he does decisions. For example, one thing he says is, when you're in doubt, the answer is no. So there's a couple of other golden nuggets in his book. He's got a book called Amp It Up, which I haven't read completely. I think done 50% of it. But yeah, not a lot of time management skills over there, but just life lessons and life skills, how to run a company over there. Yeah.
There's no, I wasn't putting you on the spot asking for the perfect solution, but right. 'Cause we're juggling a lot of things. And honestly, I was reflecting the other day around, I've got 2 kids and I'm in the throes of that. And if I would restart my company now, and I think, I think I would have, but it would be very difficult. Right? Because you're just trying to all figure it out, and your time management skills maybe aren't the best because you're probably working too much. Yash, it's always it's good to catch up with you, and I appreciate the conversation, your perspective. It's really helpful and enlightening in a lot of ways too. Talk to us about how people can interact with you, where to find you, and where they can hear more about Videoselz.
Yeah, our website, that's the best place, www.videoselz, that videoselz.com, in case if your camera can catch me.
Oh, nice. Like the sweat. Come on, man. I didn't get one of those last time.
Yeah, for sure. I'll send over the shirt to you.
I love it.
And it's videoselz.com. And that's the best way to find us. You can email me, yash@realityshop.io, but the easiest way is just go to videoselz.com, book a 30-minute meeting. Happy to chat. I'm not super active on Twitter or LinkedIn yet. It's just I've been focused on building a core foundational product that we're pretty excited about, and our customers will be excited about. But check us out.
Love it. Yeah, focus on the work, right? The marketing and activation of the brand will come later. Yash, always a pleasure. Really appreciate your time, and we'll be in touch, all right?
Thank you so much, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Built to Convert. If you're serious about growth, don't just listen. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for new episodes that drop straight into your feed. Until next time, keep building.